This keen spectator wasn't taking a back seat as he cruised through the show. He was one of hundreds who came to look and dream of one day getting behind the high-powered and high-priced vehicles. Everything from hotted-up model cars to motorbikes and vintage cars revved up the imaginations of the dreamers. This old-timer got the honk of approval. Even Ted Bullpit brought along his Holden, while one of the country's rarest Fords made a pit stop at the show.
The number one EB GT, which is the new Ford GT. We've got number one in the world here. We've got what they call an American underslung, which is only 3 of them in the world. It's valued a lot of money.
But despite all the horsepower on show, there was one car on display which could catch up with any of them. The cheers were replaced by disbelief and sympathy for one of Cessnock's best-known sporting families when it was confirmed that 32-year-old Mark Watson had been killed while helping his father move a front-end loader onto a truck at Seaham yesterday afternoon. The heavy machine had toppled, crushing Mark. The nuggety front rower, known as Watto to his mates, died before help arrived.
It's put a cloud over the whole town. The word broke yesterday afternoon. I've never seen such a dullness come over a club as quick as what it came over yesterday afternoon.
According to the General Manager of the Cessnock Rugby League Supporters Club, John Knipe, Watto was no twinkle-toes on the football field, but a slogger who'd played more than 250 grade games and 180 premiership matches, including 4 grand finals for the Goannas.
So in the last 2 years of that term, that he really didn't want to play football, but out of loyalty to the town, because the teams weren't going so well, he saddled up again. And I know that he could have got 3 times as much money anywhere else as he got the last 3 years he played for Cessnock.
The club's sympathy went out to Mark's wife Tony and their 3 young children. Mark's brother Chris is a top-class speedway motorbike racer. His father George, still in deep shock after the accident, was in his day a champion cyclist.
If you want to find out anything about the Watson family, how good they are, you've got to go and ask them, because they won't tell you. So they're a very greatly respected family in the town.
"16 Malaysian air cadets will soon be taking off in their careers as commercial airline pilots. They're the first batch of trainees to be sent to Cessnock by Malaysian Airlines as part of a $4 million contract. The Academy has previously taken in an overflow of Malaysian Air students, but is now seen as a prime pilot training centre away from the crowded skies of Asia.
From all about 2,000 applications, they just took about 200 cadets per year.
The Academy supports a staff of about 40. 26 aircraft fly more than 20,000 hours a year. About 100 students pass through flight simulators before getting into the real thing. Hundreds more hours are taken up in briefings and lectures. The Civil Air Academy is a non-profit organisation affiliated with the University of Newcastle, whose aviation students also gain their wings at Cessnock. After 14 months of training on their first overseas assignment for Malaysian Airlines, the young pilots are eager to rise to career challenges ahead.
Of course, as big as possible, as fast as possible. You know, big jets, everyone's dream, every pilot's dream.
They struggled into town in dribs and drabs, 1,500 cyclists, almost doubling the population of Dungog overnight. It's day 4 of the 9-day event, 550 kilometres from Port Macquarie to Sydney, and some very tired bodies are in need of a break.
Well, my bike stuffed and I'm worse. No, it was very tough. I'm too old for this caper.
Local pubs are benefiting from the event, but the real winner is the fight against multiple sclerosis. Riders hoping to raise more than $200,000. A tent city has been set up at the Dungog Showground to house and feed the hordes. 12 semi-trailers are carrying food and equipment along the route. Riders from tiny tots to a 75-year-old are making the trip.
Some people haven't ridden a bike for 30 years here and all of a sudden decided that they're going to do this, and it's a huge challenge for them, a great holiday, and they'll ride into Darling Harbour probably having done one of the greatest things of their life.
Some of those were still riding into town tonight, ready to ride the 60 kilometres or so into Maitland tomorrow. They hope to make Sydney on Sunday. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Dr Ian White is the Director of Clinical Pharmacology at Newcastle's Mater Hospital. He's just released a paper which guides ambulance and hospital staff on the treatment of snake bites. According to Dr White, one of the most important things to remember is not to wash the bite. It's now possible to tell what antivenom is required by using a venom detection kit which identifies the snake.
We can give a specific antivenom instead of having to give a large amount of non-specific antivenom. And that means that there's less risks from giving antivenom and there's less risks from the side effects of the antivenom.
The areas where snake bites have most often occurred have been listed by Dr White. Those hospitals now have venom detection kits and ample antivenom to treat brown and tiger snake bites.
By looking at the snakes that actually exist in the Hunter area, we can decide how much antivenom needs to be kept at which hospital.
There has only been one snakebite death in the Hunter in recent years. That was earlier this year when a bushwalker was bitten by a tiger snake in the Barrington Tops. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The 24-hour stoppage earlier in the week saw 14,000 workers walk out of BHP plants in New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. The 2,000 on strike in Newcastle cost the company $2 million in lost production here, but of even greater concern to BHP, the effect on its reputation in the international steel market. Nothing was revealed from the Federation of Industrial, Manufacturing and Engineering employees' talks with the company, which began at noon today and was still going late this afternoon. A Union National Negotiating Committee meeting had been scheduled for later, at which recommendations were to be formulated for putting to a gathering of delegates from all BHP plants. Unions are seeking 2 wage rises of 4% each over the next 2 years and a backdated claim for productivity improvements added to current wage agreements. The idea is to encourage greater safety awareness in an industry which has traditionally been the most hazardous. And it is working, with the number of lost time accidents falling by 2/3 in the past 8 years. And the rate continues to drop sharply, with a further fall of 25% in the past 12 months. In fact, 10 mines or preparation plants actually reported no lost time accidents in that period. But it's not just luck. Nominees for the awards have to demonstrate that health and safety systems have been implemented to engineer out hazards and that they are working. This is certainly the case at the Camberwell coal mine near Singleton, which was the winner of the open cut category from 7 other applicants because of its wide range of safety initiatives. Coal and Allied's Catherine Hill Bay Washery won the Coal Preparation Plant Safety Award for its improved performance despite reductions in manning. And 2 Central Coast pits, Chain Valley and Wallara, rated highly, but the underground award went to the Western Main Colliery near Lithgow.
The Navy ship Newcastle was launched last February in Melbourne by Lady Mayoress Margaret McNaughton. While she was there, she said the right thing to the right people.
I just gently suggested it would be a marvellous idea if we could share the excitement and have the ship commissioned in Newcastle.
And that's exactly what will happen in December.
On that day, the 11th of December, when we hoist the flags, she will for the first time be legal to be known as Her Majesty's Australian Ship Newcastle.
The Newcastle will be the first combatant ship to be commissioned in the city since World War II, and it's pertinent considering that half the ship's hull was built at local Eglo Engineering and shipped south by barge. Between now and December, the ship will be fitted out and the crew of 200 will familiarise themselves with their new vessel. For Commander Rowan Moffat, it will be a great day when he takes control of the Navy's newest and most up-to-date warship.
So are you looking forward to all this?
Absolutely. Greatest experience of my life.
"90 riders are enjoying rugged Barrington top scenery in a way few others will.
The best seat in the house to see the best country.
Now in its third year, the Ride for Help set out from Muswellbrook yesterday and wound its way through stock tracks and mountain country near Scone, heading to bunk down at Gundy tonight. We caught up with the riders as they took a well-earned spell at the historic Beltrees homestead near Scone. As well as the hardened riders, there are solicitors and secretaries, miners and grandmothers. Sponsors have provided invaluable backup. A removalist van loaded with camping and cooking gear and horse feed meets the group at the end of each day.
Tomorrow at Gundy, we've got a big fundraising day with various musicians coming and hopefully members of the RDA doing a demonstration to show the public exactly how it happens. Raffles, that sort of idea. And another big one on Sunday at Timor.
Money raised will help disabled children, the NBN Telethon and ongoing rescue helicopter appeal. Last year's ride brought in $33,000, a target the riders are hoping to beat by the time they reach Gloucester, on the other side of the tops on Saturday.
Day 7, 400 kilometres behind them, but who's counting? Another perfect autumn day to hit the road. 1,500 cyclists camped in Maitland last night. They started their ride in Port Macquarie on Saturday. Today it was time for some fine-tuning, some stretching and a lazy start in their run to Sydney by Sunday. The riders are hoping to raise more than $200,000 for research into MS and achieve some personal goals along the way. Yesterday was a rest day, so the weary muscles should be firing. Watch out for them on the Central Coast at Arimba tonight.
The Hexham-based Industrial Galvanisers Corporation started as a family business in 1968, working from an old suitcase and caravan. 25 years later, it has 8 plants throughout Australia and in Malaysia.
That's a good achievement in its own right, but to prosper and grow in 25 years is a wonderful effort.
Steel is protected by a galvanised coating through a process of acid baths before being dipped into molten zinc. In 1979, the company installed what it claims is the world's biggest galvanising bath, and the process has since been copied throughout the world. For guests at the company's anniversary, there was a demonstration of the dip process. Apart from such one-off jobs, the corporation is responsible for structures such as roadside guardrails, steel building frames and construction supports.
It's something that maybe people take for granted, but the move from the big industry here in 79 into the coal washery area, into the railway electrification schemes. That's all galvanised, and if you do take the time to look around the Newcastle area, there is quite a significant amount of galvanising in our town.
The Kiwis came ashore a few days ago and headed straight for the RAAF base at Williamtown for the first round of games. Competition is intense and sly shots are often the order of the day. But organisers say it's all just part of the intense rivalry.
Well, it could be marbles, and I think that the rivalry would be just the same. I mean, yeah, this is pretty serious stuff.
And the Australians aren't exactly angels either. They're trying all the old tricks to destabilise the Kiwis.
We sent them off to the wineries for a tour yesterday before the test match, hoping for the best, but they didn't drink too much, unfortunately.
The Australians, playing in the white uniforms, are so far performing well. They have another 11 days of competition at Williamtown before the tour moves around the rest of Australia, with the finals played in Canberra towards the end of the month. Organisers wasted no time in getting the Kiwis onto the court bright and early this morning. Their competition this time, a group of Newcastle's best grade players. New Zealand's Mark Gribben is rated number 6, but was sent scurrying all over the court by Rod Golding.
He's looking a bit slow on the court today. He had a big night out last night and he's just warming to the task.
The women's games were just as physical. Maria Dimer from Newcastle, playing in the red skirt, tried to outmuscle her opponent, but the Kiwi had too much skill. The New Zealanders look upon the Trans-Tasman tournament as a battle that must be won at all costs, and they won't hear of losing.
We've come over here to win, and we want to go home with the trophies.
That dream of trophies may have to be put on hold because so far the Australian Combined Defence Force team are in the overall lead. The drive behind the marathon is to raise money for the Camperdown Children's Hospital and the Port Macquarie Fire Brigade. However, the official start wasn't quite what they planned.
It gives me great pleasure to officially open the marathon and throw the first darts. Thank you.
It's expected up to 50 players will help out through the night in a continuous round robin. But it's not all darts. To try and alleviate the monotony, they'll pick up the pool cues. There'll be extra special attention to make sure everyone keeps their sense of humour. Anyone who wants to help out or kick in a few dollars can drop into the Port Macquarie RSL Club at any time through the night. It doesn't matter what size or hull shape your boat is, as long as it's sail-driven you're eligible for the annual Port Hunter Regatta and the chance to be named Cock of the Harbour if you win. Seconds after they crossed the start line, the fleet was almost becalmed. Two of the closest competitors were brothers Shane and Chris Russell. Shane is skippering his new designed catamaran K2. It was only launched a week ago and he seems to have worked the bugs out of it already. Chris Russell used today's race as a warm-up for his defence of the Queensland Championship next week in Brisbane. He eventually won just ahead of his brother. Competition is intense and rivalry between crews often has them only centimetres apart, each of them trying to steal the other's wind and get the edge.
In full flight you could be up to 20, 30 knots.
In the 16-foot skiff class, Feather Duster, seen here with the Newcastle Permanent Spinnaker, edged out classy local performer Tip Top. Today's races were the last for the season and the final chance to add points for the club championship. Maitland have concentrated on rebuilding over the off-season after dropping out in last year's final. Nathan Freeze had a field day with the boot, dobbing goals from all over Dangar Park. By half-time he'd racked up all his side's points and had them well in the lead. At one stage, Mayfield were almost handing the goals to him on a plate, giving away silly penalties. The Maitland pack were never far behind the ball and swarmed in with great size at every opportunity. But when it came to scrums, Mayfield East almost ran them at their will, controlling play and moving well through the back line, but fumbling at the crucial moment. Although it's only early days, both teams have enough flair and depth to become serious final contenders.
Polling booths opened early yesterday and a steady stream of people turned up to vote for a new councillor. The position on council was made vacant by the death of George Viskauskas in January. Yesterday, almost 14,000 votes were cast in the by-election. 7 candidates nominated for the position, but it was won by Everson Strafford from Fredericton near Grafton. He was elected following the distribution of preferences. He received 4,356 votes. Mr Strafford is a local businessman and owns Everson Wholesale Abattoir at Fredericton.
Only minutes into the game and Paul Harrigan landed one square on Tony Iroh's chin. The Kiwi Test star was out cold for a few minutes and when he came to looked like he was still in fairyland. Iroh managed to make it back onto the field, but David Boyd kept the bells ringing. Manly officials spent the day looking at the tapes of both incidents, trying to determine if they have a good enough case to say they were intentional. It was a disappointing day for the Knights. Not only did they lose 22-4, but the side appeared to lose direction. Time and again, forwards lost the ball at crucial points.
And obviously with the heat and the amount of sweat, those balls do tend to get fairly slippery, but concentration was probably another factor, I guess, and we all had problems with it.
The lack of concentration wasn't confined to the forwards. The backs also had their problems. 2 of the best performers, though, were Glanville and Brad Godden. Glanville ran hard all day, but his good work fell apart without support runners.
Well, I was reasonably happy with my game, but obviously I would have liked to have changed that for the 2 points.
Fullback Godden stopped countless Manly raids with bootlace tackles. Yesterday's disappointing performance will have plenty of players nervous about tomorrow's team selection.
Yesterday afternoon, Nelson Bay man Adam Reid, who'd had a history of mental illness, entered the local police station to confess to a shooting 6 years ago, a shooting that never happened. After speaking with Mr Reid, Sergeant Jeffrey Smith attempted to search him. Reid then grabbed Smith's pistol, shooting him twice and firing at Sergeant Barry Hall, the bullet grazing his ear. Reid then turned the gun on himself.
The strength of people that are in this mental state is that of several persons, and he effectively overpowered the sergeant.
The seizure of the pistol by Adam Reid begs the question of the need for change to police searching procedures. Such a recommendation could be the outcome of a coronial inquiry to be conducted in Newcastle and headed by Coroner Col Elliott.
No doubt when Mr Elliott finishes this inquiry, he may, and I say the word advisedly, may make some recommendations to either the police board or the minister or the commissioner as to whether there is any need in fact for changes in policy, etc.
Today those who knew Adam Reid are still shocked by his actions.
To me he was alright, like quiet sort of bloke, just kept to himself.
Sergeant Smith remains in intensive care in the John Hunter Hospital in a satisfactory condition.
I fervently believe God's been watching him, that's what I believe.
Police are continuing their investigations. The Sydney Trauma Squad are in Nelson Bay counselling police and witnesses of the shooting. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Natural disaster experts from around Australia and overseas have been in Newcastle for the last 3 days, discussing the impact of the city's earthquake on Australian communities. Today they took to the streets of Newcastle to see how the city has been rebuilt. But despite the great work done in Newcastle, Director of the State's Emergency Service, Major Brian Howard, believes the rareness of earthquakes in Australia means people aren't as aware or as prepared as they should be for earthquakes.
People can be enthused to do things to get themselves ready for floods, for storms, for bushfires. But because the earthquake is so rare, it's difficult to have people as aware as they should be.
As a result, the Major believes an education campaign that goes to all Australians needs to be formulated.
It's easy to get the awareness in Newcastle. They've had one. The areas which haven't had one need a similar experience of learning the implications.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Commissioner Lauer made the trip to visit the wounded officer despite her busy schedule in Sydney. He was escorted to the hospital by district commanders. Ranks were closed on the media. Inside, Commissioner Lauer and Superintendents of the Newcastle and Maitland districts spoke briefly to Sergeant Smith, who is reported to be recovering well after being shot in the chest and stomach on Monday. Sergeant Smith was shot when a 20-year-old Nelson Bay man burst into the Nelson Bay police station, disarmed the sergeant and fired a number of shots from a service revolver. The gunman, Adam Reid, then ran outside and shot himself in the head. A coronial inquiry is in progress. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Of addition, slight chances battling on Innocent King. Innocent King is now bursting along the fence. He's coming home far the better, Innocent King, after looking well beaten.
The winner, Innocent King, just happened to be one of Gary Harley's tips. It paid $4.10 and $1.80. Next race, the Tooheys Doncaster Handicap, and a spectacular lineup of talent.
Shortly before 9 last night, 2 men and a woman walked towards Hamilton Railway Station, one of the men slightly behind the others. An eastbound train had stopped at the station. Another 2-carriage train was travelling west on the other line.
At the time, the safety gates were down with the lights flashing. These two people would appear to have stepped onto the line from the southern side of the track where the two-carriage train collided with them.
The victims were rushed to John Hunter Hospital, the male with major head injuries, the female suffering head and chest injuries. Police have not yet identified the victims. The male is aged in his 30s, around 180 centimetres tall, slim build, with scars on his chest and arms. The female is aged between 35 to 40, average height, of Aboriginal origin and medium build. Anyone with information should contact Hamilton Police. Police are waiting to talk to the two people to try and piece together the events of last night. However, neither is well enough to be interviewed. Both remain in intensive care in the John Hunter Hospital. The male is in a critical condition. The female is serious but stable. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. It was day one of the popular getaway for children suffering from cancer. Their week-long trip beginning with a quick bite to eat.
This is the day of great excitement. The children have arrived. Right at this moment we're having all the families meet the companions, not for the first time. A lot of them have already met in their homes and shared some time together. And this is where we take custody of the children. So this is where all the excitement starts. That's why the noise in the background is so deafening.
The 60 youngsters who had gathered for their sojourn met their carer and primed themselves for a great time. They learnt their catch cry for the holiday, the Yogi. With the farewells over, it was all systems go and off to Caravan City at Coffs Harbour Showground. The children settled into their new surrounds quickly, and it was not long before a water fight erupted. During the week, the children will go hot air ballooning, abseiling, try their hand at archery and their eye at arts and crafts.
The sprint course is one of the sport's more unusual events. Skiers stand on the back of the boat. Once they cross the line, they jump off and the boat accelerates rapidly until it reefs them out of the water. Stopping, though, can be an experience in itself. This style of racing can also provide problems for judges, the spray given off obscuring competitors side by side. Having an accident at this sort of speed can cause some nasty head injuries, so skiers are encouraged to wear neck braces. Although the style adopted by some makes it hard to imagine they're actually enjoying the sport. Gary Adams from Raymond Terrace set one of the fastest times. He covered the 350 metres in 16.5 seconds.
And the hand, we've found blue tack, So, okay, you're in the final.
Set in Argentina, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Evita tells the story of Eva Perón's life, her journey from poverty to power, finally taking her place at the side of President Juan Perón.
It was an interesting story. She was a very interesting lady, and I think you can relate it through to a lot of individuals who have actually climbed the ladder of success, albeit corruptly.
The show is being staged by Novocastrian Productions. In an unusual move, about half of the cast has formed a company and actually bought the theatre.
Novocastrian Productions have always been a bit like gypsies. We've just gone from one hall to another, and when I came across this place, I thought, great, what can we do with it?
Director Don McEwen says the venue seats up to 500 people. The company plans to stage 2 other musicals at the Mission Theatre later this year. Jane Anderson, NBN News.